Hello and welcome back to part 3 of True Grit Down Under, a ThyGap special on the Border-Gavaskar series 2021 between India and Australia. If you're listening to this first, make sure you go back and check out parts 1 and 2 where we followed the team's journey through Adelaide and Melbourne, and now we are on to the match at Sydney. My name is Bogus Noog, and with me is my co-host,
Being Brute.
What is up, bro?
What's up, Bogus? I think we are finally here.
Knocking on the doors of the SCG.
Yes.
So, just to cover the Sydney match very quickly before we get into the detail, of course.
Yup.
In the first innings, Australia comes out with positive intent, a dominating 338 all out, followed by India, who falls short at 244 all out, and then Australia come back to add another 300 runs before declaring, leaving India to either chase down the score and try to get a victory or try and survive and escape defeat. But before we get to that, and before we dig into the details, let's look at what the run-up to the Sydney match was. We ended our part 2, Brute, with what was the immediate aftermath of the Melbourne test. What were the players saying, what was social media saying, etc.
The people are speaking.
The people, they always speak.
They've started speaking louder after the infamous victory at Melbourne by India.
Yeah, logon ka kaam hai kehna, as they say. And Ricky Ponting, true to the spirit, comes out and in the media and urges the Australian team to show more intent.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, what's going on? Is because Ricky Ponting, of course, can't blame him for having the hangover of...
Number 36.
No, I mean hangover of the kind of cricket they used to play, his team.
Yeah.
But compared to that, can't blame him for coming out and saying, show more intent.
I'll get into the details later, but let's move on. What's the next point?
The next big thing or significant thing that happened was Steve Smith came out in the media and admitted that Ashwin kind of got to him in the first and second test. And the very fact that he came out and admitted it showed that...
Pretty brave of...
I mean, the champion player that he is.
Yeah.
It showed that he was confident enough to come out and say it. Accept it. And that also was warning bells for India because Sydney is also a ground that he loves to play in.
Yeah.
And so already we're going into Sydney with the specter of Steve Smith looming all over us. And Australia have half of David Warner and a full Will Pucovski coming in, replacing Travis Head.
Yeah.
Because of his performances. Will Pucovski, of
and
course.
And Joe Burns.
And Will Pucovski, of course, very widely known up until that point as a promising up-and-coming talent from Australia.
Yes.
But
he was their bet for Shubman Gill.
Yeah, like-for-like replacement, if you can say that. And popular not just because of his recent match performances in Australia, but also because of the number of injuries he tends to take on himself, especially concussion injuries. So there was a bit of concern for Pucovski as well because everyone knew he was going to face some music when he came in. And there was a minor scare, bro, involving 5 Indian players at a hotel in Sydney.
You know, yeah. I mean, like, COVID had to come in. COVID needed to have its share of publicity in the series.
Yeah, it was a lunch at a Sydney restaurant. It involved Rishabh Pant, Shubman Gill, Navdeep Saini, Rohit Sharma, and I forget the 5th. There was an Indian fan who saw them having their lunch, and he offered to pay their bill, basically.
Which is very weird.
I mean, it's a classy gesture, I would say.
Is it?
Just
They're
to show
already
appreciation.
Rich guys. Like, what are you?
I know,
paying
but
them?
you know, it's not about the rich kind of thing, but it's also, I'm not hounding you at your table for autographs or I'm not taking selfies, but I'm just going to tell the restaurant to not charge you. So you guys go at it, have your food.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is a classy gesture.
Yeah,
from what
but
I
weird thing, blown out of proportions, obviously.
I mean, yeah, it was blown out of proportion, but it was funny because this guy, when he offered to pay the bill and the players got to know, allegedly they shook hands or met up and then allegedly Pant hugged this guy.
Yeah.
And this guy, obviously, social media, any small mileage you get that you can actually put a post on, and it's not just about the idli you had in the morning.
But it also the glass with which you drank that water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's slightly different. An Indian player came and hugged you, so he couldn't hold his horses.
Excitement.
And he posted it in social media saying, I got hugged by Rishabh Pant. And this became a huge thing in Australia.
Right. I honestly don't know how this is adding up to the test series, but it definitely did one thing. It unnecessarily deviated the whole, intensity of the match to something so petty.
I can tell you how it added up because in the immediate aftermath of that incident, there was a possibility that few of those players might have to sit out because they broke the bubble.
Yeah.
Because they would have to go back into the bubble with the rest of the Australian squad.
Right.
if they really broke biosecurity protocol,
Yeah.
then that means they may have to sit out. And that could have been a card Australia could have played.
Yeah.
But luckily it turned out not to be that way, because when this guy put out that social media post and it went viral, he was obviously expecting a lot of shabash and
Yeah, wow, dude. Awesome, bro. You're
lucky
chilling
guy.
with them.
Yeah, you're chilling with the players.
Yeah.
Instead,
All the chicks are yours.
he must have got his ass kicked because everyone was saying, bastard, because of you now these
Like,
players might be missing out.
I mean, like, his landlord would have been a rent pay kar gandu.
Yeah.
Like, stop paying their bills, pay up my bills.
And so our hero was quick to come back to social media and say, oh, by the way, when I said he hugged me,
Yeah, it was like a virtual hug.
Yeah.
It was not like
it didn't.
bodies weren't touching,
Yeah.
no coconuts knocking.
Yeah. When I said he hugged me, I meant that he did not actually.
Yeah, it was like, you got it wrong.
I just got carried away
Yeah.
in the excitement.
Yeah.
And he tried to cover it up.
Yeah,
No one kind
a
of
bad
bought it.
cover up.
Well, that was a funny thing that happened. What else? There was already rumors about the Indian squad not wanting to go to Brisbane. And their reasoning was because Brisbane is in Queensland.
Yeah,
And
there are
if
a
they
lot
had-
of cases there.
I mean, not just that. It was
Compared.
the Queensland government was actually being very adamant that we don't care whether they've been in a bubble throughout Sydney or whatever. That's a different territory.
We want you to
If you're
go
coming
back
into our province,
Yeah.
you've got to do the whole thing again.
2 weeks again.
The
Yeah.
quarantine and all that stuff. And they were being very anal about it.
Yeah.
So India was like, is it really worth it? We don't want to do
Which
it.
is a fair point.
Yeah. But then how that got translated in the media.
Australians made a meal of.
Yeah. They were like, oh, these guys don't want to come to Gabba.
Yeah.
They don't want to come to the Gabba.
I reckon they're scared of Gabba.
Yeah.
I reckon.
Scared of the Gabba, Mike.
I reckon, Mike. I reckon.
And Tim Payne even came out and, there was a video in Crick Buzz about, BCCI, they've got cloud, they've got power. So probably it's not going to be Gabba. Probably we might play somewhere else. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're just focusing on the game. And,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Game might.
And from
We
the
almost sounded like pirates there. We didn't sound like Australians in any quarter, but
we're not even trying.
yeah,
are we?
I mean, like, we did try, let's be honest.
A little bit.
But we came off more like pirates. Like.
Yeah. Let's just say we are not being paid for this. So
Exactly. So we don't care how we came across.
yeah. And from the Indian side, you have Rohit Sharma, the hitman.
Probably not so much in test, but nevertheless, Sydney
Yeah.
is his favorite ground
Yep.
as much as it is Steve Smith's favorite ground.
Yep.
So again, it's been balanced there. Like if we anticipate if Smith plays well,
Mm-hmm.
so will Rohit.
Yeah, so Rohit Sharma, the hitman, is coming back, and Navdeep Saini is joining the squad. He's got
Yeah.
some serious pace,
Yep.
and he's set to be able to bat for a bit. Things are looking good. India is having a 5-bowler attack. Let's see how that works out. So, Brute, into the Sydney match now.
Yeah.
We have a brooding, threatening forecast of a Steve Smith looming over his favorite ground, Sydney. And I felt like when I saw his press conference where he said, yeah, I'll let Ashwin get to me, it seemed like he spent the 2 weeks in between matches trying to do like an exorcism routine, like rid himself of the ghost of Ashwin. But in that process,
wore that silver cross.
yeah. But in that process, it seems like, yes, he did rid himself of Ashwin's ghost, but then he got possessed by something else altogether.
He got possessed by his past demons, which were working in his favor.
You mean the demons of above 60 average?
Yeah, the
27
demons
test
of
hundreds.
60 average, 27 test hundreds, demons of overconfidence, demons of freakish batting technique,
Yeah.
unbelievable sense of self-assuredness. I think he just went into this zen zone, right? When I saw that guy bat in the first innings of Sydney, I actually anticipated a 200.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it.
Unless it wasn't for Sir Jadeja coming with his golden Midas touch, like telling the ball to be like, do what I say. If it wasn't for that, God knows how much he would have scored that day. He was just so comfortable at the crease. That was
He just
really scary.
looked like you could not take his wicket.
Yeah, there was no other way. The best chance is handling the ball and hit wicket. That probably would have the highest percentage of how you can get Steve Smith out that day.
It was almost funny, like a Greek legend, like Achilles. There was no way you could defeat him in battle, except if you knew that he had a loophole, you hit him in the knee, the heel.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to get him.
That's the only way, yeah.
And Jadeja, the way he swooped in on that ball, I mean, I watched that in loop so many times. And every time I see that, right, the way he looked at the batsman running and he swooped into the ball, it reminded me so much of like an Animal Planet or a National Geographic segment.
Where a cheetah kind of like
Exactly.
goes behind a head.
Yeah.
You know, it was almost like Jadeja was waiting for that one chance where he can challenge Steve Smith's running speed. I think Jadeja was just sitting there in the ground at his fielding positions, and he was like, God, give me just one chance to throw at the stumps, and hopefully that would be at Steve Smith's end, and I'll promise you I'll beat this guy.
The funny thing is that in reality it was actually close to that, which is post-match Jadeja actually said that he anticipated that they might, hit it somewhere near him, and because he was too far away, they might feel confident and take a run, and that's when he would actually attack the ball. But just that release...
Dude, Jadeja is, for me, leagues apart from all the best fielders. But yes, apart from that brilliance of Jadeja, I think it was predominantly Steve Smith that day. What an innings, dude, that guy. I specifically remember this one jab pull kind of a thing that he plays, where he looks in such awkward position. If you're a conventional batsman, you technically are not even thinking of that shot. And Smith does it with such ease. It almost is like, that's how you're supposed to play that shot. I don't know why everybody else plays it differently.
Which is why I was caught off guard when he used the word zen for him, because for me it was the opposite of zen. The way he moved on the crease, there was no stability, there was no calmness. He was completely like wired onto something, like as if he was high on something pretty much. Aggressive.
Don't use such things with Steve Smith. There can be a distant possibility that he might be high on something and it might come out later on and we would be proven right. We might almost be predicting something here.
Oh my God, let's hope not.
But
aggressive from the first ball. It's like, what's Adelaide? What's Melbourne? He forgot.
It's like it's the first test match that he's playing. That's how you say every batsman has their trademark. All good batsmen, right? They get off the mark with an on drive or like a front foot punch, or they have their trademark shot. Like Virat Kohli does that. He comes and plays that punch off the covers and you know that this guy is in form.
Justin Langer used to say that when Ricky Ponting used to come in, and whenever he started off with an on drive, he said something similar. You knew.
It's his day. So that and Steve Smith's that walking drive, I don't know what you call it. He kind of like plays a extended defense shot. But it's almost like he's in the middle of a walking stride where he's about 5 paces down the pitch by the time he finishes his shot. I mean, beautiful. It's as weird as it is to look at his game. He's just like too much in control.
There was absolutely no answer to him on that day. We looked completely helpless. But we were also talking that this Sydney test, yes, Adelaide had that shock and awe factor. And yes, Melbourne was a reset. It was a series equalizer. And people were kind of caught up in that. And a lot of weaknesses or loopholes kind of got lost in both Adelaide and Melbourne. But Sydney is where a lot of things actually came out to the surface for people to see.
What are you talking about, Focus?
I'm getting to that. So
don't beat around the bush.
No, this was the lead up. Thanks for ruining it. A lot of things got exposed in Sydney, and not just about players, not just about this team or that team, but also about the people viewing the game as well. To start off with, let's take Pujara, for instance. Pujara's first innings 50 was called the slowest 50 in his career.
And it's the third slowest all time.
And what was the reaction outside of the game, bro, to his 50?
It was an illiterate reaction, according to me.
Why do you say that?
I mean, you need to understand the context of the game. You need to understand the role he is supposed to play. You can't take away the fact of what Pujara believes or how Pujara believes he's contributing to the game. Let us give some credit to the think tank, right? Let us give some credit to the captain, the selection team, and the management, the coach and everything. If Pujara was genuinely so bad, so counterproductive for the team, I'm sure these guys would have evaluated that, right? But the confidence that they show in Pujara is a testimony that he has a designated role. Now, no matter what happens, you are supposed to hold the batting together. You give the confidence for others to play their natural game. And so are you playing your natural game, because that's how you go about with your batting. So in a sense, everybody is playing the natural game. And it is for the benefit of the team. It's for the larger good. It's not for the entertainment of for the public, or you're not putting on like a dance show or a theater show. You're playing a sport. It's a lot of strategic moves that you make. It's like a chess game. Pujara, yes, he might not be as lucrative as Virat Kohli, or yes, he might not be that polished, technically so beautiful to look at also. But you got to respect that guy's sacrifices, man. I mean, he's sacrificing all the laurels and all the benefits that you get of being an enterprising player just so that your team can survive the opposition attack.
So let me play the devil's advocate here.
Okay, play.
And
go.
ask you that Australia has just made 338 in their first innings.
Right.
Steve Smith, big 100.
Right.
Now it's India's turn to respond. And it's not like before Pujara got in, we put up a very big score as well.
True.
So at that instant, if Pujara comes in and makes a 50 and takes 200 odd balls to make that 50,
Right.
put it in perspective, all the fact that you said, you got to respect his contribution. There's a lot of worth or value to what he does. Put it in perspective in this context where he just came and made a 50, but he took 200 odd balls to do it.
Got it.
Where is India getting that value from Pujara in this context?
I'll tell you. First and foremost, to give you the game context of Sydney, it was the second day that we were batting. So it's still too early in the match. It's not like it's a do or die situation. Look at Adelaide Test. Look at Melbourne Test. Name a partnership which was more than 50 runs or whatever.
Only in Melbourne.
Right?
Yeah.
And how many of them was Pujara involved in? All the failures where Pujara is getting out for cheap or whatever. 8 out of 10 innings, right? Indian batting order collapses.
Okay.
Now, there is a reason for that. For you, in a test match scenario, you need to understand how you buy time at the pitch. It's not like a one day. It's not like you just go and you expect to play a normal game. Not every batsman can do that, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. Pujara absorbs all that pressure. Pujara might give 10 maiden overs in a trot. Pujara might not score a boundary in like 50 balls. But what he is definitely doing is he's absorbing all that initial sting that the bowlers have. So what happens on the other end is by the time other batsman comes on to strike, now the bowlers are more willing to get him out. So they try more. The moment the bowlers start trying more, there is a scope of error. And bowlers are okay to get that error because they feel that even if I give that 1 or 2 boundaries to this guy, I might get him out.
Yeah.
So by the time they give that 2 odd boundaries to the other batsman, Pujara is back on strike, again soaking in all that sting that the bowler is able to generate. So if you look at it mathematically, Pujara single-handedly played about like 40 overs. You basically are tiring out the bowlers for 40 overs is almost like 3 hours, right?
Right.
For 3 hours, the bowlers are bowling without getting a wicket. That is the strategic value of what Pujara does. He comes 3 down and he absorbs all this pressure and he most often than not stays till that 7th or 8th wicket.
Right.
And that's the importance. He anchors the innings and that's what you need in a test match, especially with the bowling attack that Australia has. I'm pretty sure at the end of Pujara's career is when people will realize, dude, this guy has contributed a lot for the success of Indian cricket team, especially abroad.
One of the popular talking points or grievances out of this slow run rate point of Pujara was that, hey, when he's taking so much time and not scoring any runs, it's putting pressure on his on the other non-striker at the other end, and they then force errors into their batting because they are chasing or they wanting to meet a total or something. What do you make of that?
No, this is a one-day mentality. That's not how tests don't run like one-day internationals. So that point doesn't stand any value according to me. Whenever the non-striker looks at Pujara and say like, "Tu to wicket nahi dega na," like you will not get out, right?
Yeah.
Pujara will be like, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm here." Then that gives the confidence to the non-striker that, hey, you know what? He's going to be there. He's going to hold the fort. So this allows me to play my game.
Right.
He's pretty solid technically. All the people who are saying that, oh, it puts more pressure on the non-striker, blah, blah, blah. I don't know who are these people who are talking that way, by the way. But whoever is doing that, they really don't understand the game.
Yeah.
The test level game, basically.
And whoever was doing that, they were noisy enough that sound, just overtook all the other valid points that anyone had to make about Pujara's contribution.
Yeah, because, I am sorry, but we have a very illiterate audience today or followers of cricket. Partially, it might also be because of the glitter glamour that T20 offers or one-day international offers. And I won't blame them for that. But test is a different ball game altogether. There is different dynamics in which you play a test match. And that is why it is the highest level of the game.
What do you make of the fact that Ricky Ponting came out and said pretty much the same thing, which Pujara should have batted faster? Is that just mental disintegration or did he actually believe it?
First of all, I wouldn't take much of Ricky Ponting's, opinions or insights.
Why? He's a very grounded guy.
He's a very grounded guy. And he's the same guy who said India might probably lose 4-0. So, the validations of his statements are not that great. So it predominantly looks like he just wants to put like external pressure on Pujara.
Right.
Luckily, Pujara doesn't follow social media or the news and he should take pride in that. that he doesn't follow all this noise.
Now we're coming on to another thing that got exposed in Sydney. We're looking at another player, Rishabh Pant, Destiny's child.
Yeah.
Didn't have a great IPL coming into this series.
Yeah.
And there were
One of those
murmurs.
days.
Yeah, and there were murmurs ki, is this really the keeper that we want? Because we know that against a spinner, facing a spinner as wicketkeeper, he tends to put a few balls down.
And I would just want to, first of all, tell this. Again, it's a very valid point that people bring on that, hey, he's not like that great a wicketkeeper batsman. He's 23.
Yeah.
And it's already been 2 years since he started playing at international level. A little more than that, maybe. And yes, there are complaints about his wicket-keeping skills. Dhoni debuted his test when he was 24, and even he had a lot of wicket-keeping issues initially.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, maybe he's not that great up close to the stumps. He is too bulky, too tall for a wicket-keeper. He doesn't rise with the ball, blah, 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 all the technical aspects of it. And look at what Dhoni turned out to be.
Yeah, and the script of Rishabh Pant's story just kept going against him from the beginning of the series, and it came to a head in Sydney especially because in the first innings he had dropped thrice.
Yeah.
He caused 3 drops, and also the batting the first innings he made about 30 odd runs.
38 quick fire runs.
Yeah.
Let's not just put the number on paper because that won't tell a lot.
Of course.
He made quick fire 38 runs.
Yeah.
With probably a half good forearm.
Yeah, he got injured.
He got hit on his forearm
during that innings.
Yeah. So let's not take away that. But this is what I have to say about Rishabh Pant. You got Rishabh Pant in the team because he will win you matches single-handedly.
Right. But unfortunately for him, it's bad enough that he got hit on his forearm.
Yeah.
And it was doubtful whether he could continue in that match. So he was facing that, but also the fact that he had dropped catches. And in the next innings, you have Saha coming in for Pant as keeper.
He substituted Pant, and I think he took a brilliant catch.
He took a brilliant catch to get Manas Labuschagne out.
Yeah, of Siraj, right? Or Saini?
Of
I think it's
Saini.
Yeah.
He dove to his left, basically.
Yeah.
And the minute he caught that catch, you again had these murmurs coming up. Oh, look, what would have happened if that was Pant over there?
Yeah, see, I won't give too much of heed into it because end of the day, I'm a big Ganguly fan and Ganguly wanted match fitness. If Ganguly wanted a keeper, Dhoni would have never played. Dhoni was in the team because he was the X factor when he came in. Dhoni's wicket keeping wasn't spoken about until recently or at the end of his career. It was always about his helicopter shot, how he chased down scores, etc., etc., etc. Where were these people, not talking about Dhoni's keeping? So if you look at it now, the moment Pant starts winning your matches, which he did in IPL, he already showed you in IPL that he can. Previous series, he scored a brilliant 150. And mind you, Pant has the record of highest number of dismissals as a keeper of India. He has about 11 dismissals in his first or second match, which is a record in itself.
Right.
And keeping is a matter of experience. He's not costing you matches because of keeping. That much I can say.
So the script kept going against him. One thing after another kept adding to his cons column. And then you have, after him getting injury and not being sure of whether he could return to bat in the second innings, in between you have that heartwarming story of him practicing in the nets with that injured forearm.
Yeah.
And just telling himself after every shot, chalo chalo kuch nahi hua.
Yeah.
Khelte raho. And whenever he got a shot wrong or whenever he gave in to an impulse and he played a Pant shot, he just followed that up with nahi yaar, not that shot. Nahi yaar, not that shot.
Yeah.
So you have this heartwarming story, and then he comes to bat in the second innings.
And then see what he has done. It was almost, I don't have any problem the way he got out. People were like, oh, this is what is immaturity, blah, blah, blah. Like, come on, dude. That's how, there are some people who live by the sword and die by the sword.
Actually, from what I saw, there was not a lot of bickering about how he got out at 97.
Outside, I'm not talking about commentary, but...
No, not commentary, just outside general fans.
Is it? I've heard a lot saying that, see, this is exactly what is my problem with Pant.
No, then those are the same people who talk about Pujara.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
exactly my point.
But I didn't hear that much noise.
The Sydney Test second innings at 97 he scored is exactly the reason why I want Pant in every test side.
And not just the 97, like we discussed in our previous episodes where we were covering Adelaide and Melbourne, especially Melbourne, where he comes out and makes a quick fire
30 odd runs.
And just the way he hit those shots, you could see the Australian body language change.
Yeah. And even in the Sydney test, up till Pujara and Pant were batting, right? The opposite forces once again. Pujara, the immovable object, and Pant, the unstoppable force. In fusion, I think Australians were secretly pulling out their hair. You know, invisibly pulling out their, like, what do we do? There's one side, a guy who doesn't attack at all. And there's other side, a guy who doesn't defend at all. Like, how do we deal with these guys? Right? On top of it, which is a lot of unspoken thing about that partnership, it's left and right combination. It puts so many things out of place. I can only imagine what Payne must be going through. Tim Payne would have been literally standing behind the wicket and like, okay, what the like, how do I deal with this?
Maybe that was the reason why what happened.
He
later.
might have lost it. He
like, completely lost his marbles.
I'm pretty sure Tim Payne smelled defeat.
Just like we smelled victory.
Yeah, we smelled victory. Pujara didn't play very slow the second innings.
He didn't.
He wasn't like horribly, painstakingly slow. He scored a pretty good 77.
And this was just after all that bullshit noise about, Pujara is taking so long to make runs. Now Pujara comes out and in the second innings, I don't know whether it was the Pant effect that was rubbing off on him.
No.
But he was just going for
Pant was there even in the first innings. It was no new element for Pujara. It was the merit of the situation. The beauty about Pujara that I like is he plays to the merit of what circumstance he's in. And then there's, on the other side, you see Pant not moving his front foot, like slapping the ball off through point and covers and, lofting Lyon over long on and mid wicket and all. At that point, I'm pretty sure Tim Payne was kind of like, oh shit, what just is happening in front of me?
Yeah, and watching that partnership made me realize that this Pant Pujara thing, the dynamic, it's a TV show that I could watch.
Yeah, the Odd Couple.
Just the Odd Couple. It's like you said, the Captain Slow versus power and speed.
Like Sonic the Hedgehog.
James May and Jeremy Clarkson kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like just the Jai Vero kind of partnership that I'm sure there's a great script because such an odd couple.
One who's like a matured, sensible, responsible guy. The other, the immature, happy-go-lucky, romantic.
Yeah, and just aggressive, takes risks.
Flamboyant in his own
Fearless.
way. Fearless, yes. Hey, come on. So is Pujara is also fearless.
Of course.
So
in his own way.
In his own way. So we can't take fearless. But, Pant, the flamboyant, college-going guy, and Pujara, the professional professor kind of a guy.
But just that dynamic they had and what they did with their opposing personalities is they caused India to start smelling victory when there was more than 300 runs to hit in that final day.
Yeah.
And we got pretty close, actually.
And also credit to the guy who actually came up with who's the brainchild of promoting Pant.
Yeah, Pant was promoted ahead of
Vihari. God knows what would have happened other way around.
Yeah.
Which would have been interesting to see. But it's a speculation again. It was a brilliant move. It just took Australia by surprise. They didn't anticipate it. And they would have thought that, Pant will score that 30-40 runs and that's that.
He'll give into temptation.
Yeah,
and
he'll give
fall.
into temptation. Which ultimately he did. But
after causing too much damage.
After kind of pushing them to the walls and at that point there was still about like 50 odd overs to go.
Yeah.
And you had about decent 200 runs to score.
Yeah.
And you were thinking, dude, Pant, even if he scores another 50-60 runs, this is our game. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Vihari and Ashwin
probably
can pull off with Pujara playing the way he's playing because Pujara can switch gears, mind you.
But of course, that was not to be because we were missing Jadeja, who got his thumb dislocated in the first innings.
Very unfortunate. I think it's just that kind of a series,
Yeah. And
I think Destiny was like, okay, so Jadeja is your go-to guy, is it? Here, take this. No more Jadeja for you. Now let's see how you play.
And Vihari pulls a hamstring while he's batting with Pujara.
Yeah.
And that pretty much forced a script on India.
Let's not forget the blows Vihari got while he was fielding.
Oh, yeah.
Solid blows by Wade. I think only Wade, no, there was Labuschagne also. I think even one or two Labuschagne shots kind of hit Vihari.
Yeah, that brings me to the next player to focus on, which is Hanuma Vihari. The kind of series he had been having, completely forgettable. Adelaide, along with the rest of of the team, yes, even his experience in that was forgettable for him. Melbourne, there was a decent partnership with Rahane that he had, which was the only saving
They
grace.
got out to a bad shot. I think it was bad shot selection.
Bad shot selection, but it was still a saving grace. Like, it was good partnership. And then in Sydney, he had just dropped Manas Labuschagne on 47.
Yep.
A Laddu ball.
Yeah.
And Manas went on to score 91, where he was then ultimately denied a century. And then he started getting body blows by Matthew Wade, and he had to go off the field to get himself checked. And on the other side, Bumrah was bawling his heart out because, one baller was shot again.
Yeah.
And his abdominal muscle was actually
basically
straining.
gave up. Yeah.
It was kind of straining, and you had the support staff.
It's the same thing. Destiny was like, oh, Bumrah is your go-to bowler. Is it? Yeah, take this. No more Bumrah for you. Boom.
Yeah. You had the support staff coming to him near the boundary and constantly checking with him. Are you okay? Are you okay? And Bumrah kept sending them away, saying he'll be able to manage.
Yeah.
All these things are going on. But when the script was forced on India, and it was Ashwin and Vihari, we didn't know at that point of time, but Ashwin's back had given out.
Yeah.
He was not
He had a
able
bad
to.
back.
He was not able to sit, and then if he sat, he was not able to stand.
Yeah.
And he came out to play with Vihari, and that legendary partnership.
Yeah. I mean, all the people who complained about Pujara, right?
Talk about slow
Talk
batting.
about slow batting. You gotta do what you got to do. That's what Test will make you do.
It was the most glorious slow batting I've ever watched.
Most entertaining slow bat.
Entertaining.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, every single ball they played, you were like, wow, well played, well left.
Yeah.
Well taken on the body. They were not able to run even like a single if the ball even went till the boundary. And it was some really smart batting. It's not just bravery. It was not blind bravery.
Yeah.
It was really smart. The way they split the bowlers, who will play who, and the whole game plan that they figured out amongst themselves. And mind you, both of them are not genuine batsmen. Vihari is, but Ashwin is not like a genuine batsman. So for Vihari to have the confidence and faith on Ashwin,
Yeah.
and say that, hey, you know what, you are as good a batsman as me, so let's share the load. There was no ego there.
No, what you saw was pure essence of
Camaraderie.
a partnership.
Yeah, pure camaraderie. And I think that's a testimony overall of how Indian team was. That one clip that I saw, which for me actually made me feel like, dude, this is exactly I wish everything was. Mm-hmm. And that was, Jadeja was padded up with his gloves on, and he couldn't even put his gloves himself because that's how badly he was damaged.
Yeah.
And Saini was sitting beside him, peeling up a banana and like feeding Jadeja.
Right.
That one clip, it's so inconsequential when it is out of context. But when you look at it, everybody was there for everybody.
Yeah.
And you just have to applaud. I don't know what made that happen, but the fact that every player embraced that and said like, yeah, we are all in it together, right?
Yeah.
It's not just that there are two batsmen who are batting in the middle of the field. It's also about everybody sitting in the pavilion, that we have to show that confidence. And I think it says a lot when, that fifth day, that partnership between Vihari and Ashwin is, for me, it was a team partnership because everybody was involved in it and everybody played a part.
I was hanging on to every ball. I was counting down overs left, time left.
Yeah.
And it was just the most gripping, uneventful phase of a test match in pure cricketing sense.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was
not uneventful.
Well,
but it definitely was, very gripping.
And it was really in Sydney that this stopped being just a run-of-the-mill test series, like any other test series. It was in Sydney that you saw the margins of difference between the two teams start to pop up more and more out into the open. It was here that there were a lot of revelations that came out, which we will go into in detail. But that partnership between Ashwin and Vihari, it started off with Vihari being able to just jog a little bit. Then he could just walk. And then after tea break, it
was almost somebody had to like pick him and put him on the other side.
Yeah, they had injected his leg with something and it went completely numb.
Yeah.
And he could not move.
Yeah.
So in that situation, when they were facing the bowlers, there was this whole phase of the chest guard that they had to keep exchanging.
It was almost like a gully match, right? Where, you keep changing the bats. There's one good bat among the batting team.
Yeah.
And whoever is going for batting in between balls, when the strike changes, you go and give the good bat to the batsman.
Yeah.
It was almost like that. It was so relatable.
For me, it looked like these two guys together are not making up two full human bodies.
Yeah.
So they were swapping organs. You're facing the bowling now. You
Yeah, take my
this
liver.
organ,
Take
my
my
liver stand, and then next over give it back.
Take my lad.
Yeah.
Take my left lad muscle.
And Ashwin was trying to have someone run into the ground, and Australians, rightly so, reasonably so, saw that as a waste of time because
That's
in their mind, the
Yeah.
time is a very
It's
important
essence.
factor.
Yeah.
So that was understandable. So Ashwin tried to have the umpire hold on to it. The umpire was like, COVID protocol, I can't do that. Ultimately, they had to resort to stuffing it, at the back of their
so many
pants.
stories, man. I mean that's the reason why I say it's not uneventful.
I mean, in the scorecard sense, it was uneventful.
Yeah,
That's all I meant.
that is right. Like, unfortunately, 20 years down the lane, when people look at the scorecard, right, they would not understand what went in.
Yeah,
They will not understand the circumstances in which they were batting.
yeah.
Not just on the cricket field, but overall, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
they can't even exchange a guard because of the COVID protocol.
Yeah.
They can't keep allowing people to come in and do things to them. All these things will not, unfortunately, be recorded on a piece of paper. And that's the unfortunate part of cricket, or any sport for the matter of fact. The circumstances in which some of these guys perform is the crux of the overall issue.
That tells me that somewhere we are failing in terms of storytelling. And this is something we discussed previously, but we will go into that later on. But
Everything. We'll go into everything later on.
Later on.
So that you keep hanging on to our podcast.
But coming to that partnership again, like they figured out pretty quickly that Vihari was having trouble facing Lion because he had to stretch.
Right.
But he was absolutely fine against the short pitch bowling
Yeah.
that was coming at him from the other end. So they figured out and they made that adjustment so that Ashwin would face Lion extensively and Vihari would just face the quicks.
Correct.
And Ashwin played Nathan Lyon so well. Like, tall guy,
I don't know.
big levers, he was able to just get to the pitch of the ball, stretch out.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was Nathan Lyon bowling in the first place, because he looked so ordinary. Like, when you look at Ashwin bat, a quarter of an Ashwin, not even like a full Ashwin, a quarter of an Ashwin bat, you're like, why isn't Lyon doing anything? You almost felt like that, right? I mean, I remember thinking that, what is wrong with Lyon? Like, this should be a cakewalk for him. Yes, understandably, the series up till then, like the first two test matches was not that great. But come on, he got Ajinkya Rahane out in that innings. He got a firing Pant out.
Yeah.
Though Pant, according to me, Pant gave the wicket more than Lyon taking it. I mean, on his name,
Two
he
very
still
big
has
wickets.
huge wickets.
In the
right?
context of the match.
In the context of the match.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have your tails up, man. Like, you're supposed to get that short leg, that leg slip. We have 3-4 fielders around him.
Yeah.
Because these guys are anyhow not even trying to score runs.
Yep.
I don't know what the fuck guys are doing outside the field. I wanted everybody around the batsman. And this is where I come to the point as to what did Australians do wrong?
Wait, we still have some ways to get to that because I'm not done with this Ashwin Vihari thing. It is just too good.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest or most special, most memorable moments for me, although there were a lot in Sydney, for me was when the Indian dressing room was watching what was going on. Probably they also figured out, the coaching group, that yes, Ashwin is playing Lion very well.
Yeah.
And Vihari is playing the quicks very well.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to send these messages out to the batsman ki, do this, do that.
Yeah.
And so along with this message that you should face Lion more and you should face the quicks more, they sent Shardul Thakur with a bunch of these messages out in the ground. And Shardul Thakur is nervously listening to Ravi Shastri as he bellows these orders at him. And he runs out to the ground to the middle. And Ashwin is like, what happened? What did they say? What did they say? And Shardul is pretty much like, bro, they sent me out with a lot of messages, but I'm not going to tell you any of those. You guys are playing brilliantly. Just keep playing. just keep playing the way you are.
Shardul
And then he
Thakur
runs back.
pulled off typically, he encompassed a Mumbaiker's, psychology of play, attitude on the field. He was like, hey, wo log ko goli maar, tum log karo jo karna hai. So,
And just that small thing for me is like Shardul Thakur, player of the match.
yeah,
like wonderful.
absolutely. I would have given him like the best substitute ever.
Wonderful thing to do. He had not even played in that series yet.
Yeah.
But he still had, something was going on in that team. everyone was just in this zone.
Yeah,
Of-
exactly, right? And
looking out for each other.
to the merit of the game, I
Yeah.
think everybody, it looked like whoever was there and whatever role they were supposed to play, they were so dedicated to that role.
Absolutely. And before we go on to the biggest factor which you mentioned already, which is, what was going on with Australia.
Now, I'm more keen on that because I'm surprised. I'm taken aback.
Like I said, before we go into that, there was also something else that happened. The Sydney crowd had a part to play in that, where
Yeah.
Mohammad Siraj, of course, first Bumrah got an earful from the crowd, a drunk crowd from Sydney,
Supposedly non-local Sydney crowd.
supposedly. And then Mohammad Siraj also got an earful. But then Siraj did something different.
Yeah, Siraj, unlike Hyderabadi players, acted as an obedient child, went to the teacher and complained saying that, teacher, these guys are calling me XYZ.
Yeah. And in the Australian side, people who cover the game, etc., more so on the Australian side, they started saying Mohammad Siraj did a heroic thing. He was a hero to stand up and talk. But the way we look at it, I'm not sure I bought into that, because the way we look at it, whenever you're complaining to the authority, there's nothing heroic about that. I mean, just the act of,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was heroic.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say that too. But I would definitely say it sent out a message to the Australians saying that,
oh yeah,
enough of this nonsense. It's not going to work anymore. Just stop doing it. It doesn't make any sense because we'll not put up with this nonsense. And you can't pick there is no low-hanging fruit, basically.
yeah,
Every player, irrespective of how experienced or inexperienced they are, they're going to put their hand up and give it back to you, or do the needful thing.
do the needful.
Do the needful.
Having said that, it's not technically heroic, but it was still an amazing thing he did, because there was no way the Australian PR machine could have escaped it, because right in the middle of the match, he goes to an umpire and he says, there is this problem. And then Rahane comes in the picture.
Yeah.
And Rahane says, nope, you're not going to walk out,
Yeah.
but you're going to have to do something.
Hey, umpires gave that option. Umpires said that, hey, if you really are so, offended or whatever, you can walk off the pitch.
But
right
then
now.
what
You
does
have the
that
right.
do to the result of the match if we walked off? Would it be forfeit?
No, they would resolve. I mean, I think the referee would come in and then figure out what is the issue, and then they would restart the game. That's what would have happened.
Okay.
It's not necessarily forfeit, unless, if the team is so, concerned or is not at all happy with the situation, then they forfeit, and essentially Australians would have gotten a win.
Right.
But
So-
what Rahane did was absolutely fine, because it was not
Oh, it was great.
related to the game.
Yeah.
So he was like, hey, this is nothing to do with the game.
It was great what Siraj did as well, because it could not escape into. Just imagine what would have happened.
I mean, there was no breathing space for the story to be cooked up.
the cameras were on.
Yeah.
They couldn't
Yeah.
do much.
There are too
And-
many cameras to turn off also.
Too many cameras to turn off, and Australian cricket tends to get into problems when the cameras are on,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
And just imagine what would have happened if they had come out after the match happened and said, oh, by the way, Siraj and Bumrah got an earful. Then you would have had all the PR machinery kick off and say oh, even the Australian crowd, plays close to the line.
Yeah.
They don't cross the line.
I reckon that would have happened. But, the other thing that I also want to bring in, one of the reasons why this kind of an attitude is coming in to the Indian players, BCCI is a very powerful body.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I think even
Bahubali.
Yeah. So, even from the BCCI level, the cadence is pretty clear, I guess, to the players, saying that, hey, you don't have to be scared of if something would be taken on you or if some action will be taken on you. We got your back.
We'll buy the ground.
Yeah, we will rename Sydney Test Ground as Sabha Karim Ground or something. Okay. And we'll make Boria to inaugurate.
Oh my God.
Do an inauguratory function there, calling in, all the greats of Indian cricket, whatever. But
Tell me
Please.
the name of this
Yeah,
ground.
please.
Tell me the new name of this ground, David Warner.
David Warner, please. So, even we have to credit BCCI because
Absolutely.
it has not been afraid of showing the muscle wherever it's needed. And I think they're doing a decent job. And again, Dada is top of everything now. So that also credits a lot that these guys are giving, like a guy like Natarajan, right? Who's been there with the team, like a guy like Shardul Thakur or Mohammad Siraj, right? They are giving, probably they would have been experiencing that kind of a support for the first time, right?
True.
So imagine the kind of confidence they would have gotten.
And BCCI also came into the picture whenever these COVID rules and quarantine rules got out of hand in Australia a little bit.
Yeah.
They also came into the picture when mid-series players were told, your families can't travel to the next venue. I think it was Sydney.
Yeah.
And then Ravi Shastri was like, I've been coming to this country for a long time, playing here a long time.
Yeah.
I know what they will bend to and what they won't bend to.
Yeah.
So I'll handle it. And then he went and handled it, basically.
Yeah. All those things, right? Having said that, nothing to be taken away from Mohammad Siraj. You don't mess around with Hyderabadis.
It was a master stroke. I'm sure it was unintentional. I'm sure Siraj thought...
Yeah, he wouldn't even thought the gravity of the situation.
Exactly. Right? Strategically, why it was like 5D chess for him to, in the middle of a match when cameras were on, go and bring the umpires
I
into
wonder
question.
if these guys get trained about it.
Now, Brute, we come
bogus.
to the big kahuna. The big revelation.
You keep using these words, which I don't get. What is kahuna? I know kahuna pyar hai.
Think of it that way. But the biggest thing, the revelation coming out of Sydney, is it sort of clued us into what's actually going on here.
Let me frame it this way, Bogus. I would like to ask you a question, right? As an outsider, you just started following the series and you kind of started getting gripped about the whole series and the turn of events and etc.
Yeah.
Right? What did you make of Tim Payne's captaincy on the field? Or let me put it this way. What do you think went wrong for Australia, according to you?
According to me, I mean, all indications pointed to the fact that they had the upper hand in Sydney until day 5.
Right.
And by all accounts, they played well. They set themselves up to a great finish at Sydney. They had one of the best, if not the best, bowling attacks going around. They had 2 new players who were, Pukowski was already out by the day 5 because he got a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
But they still had Cameron Green.
Who played a brilliant innings.
Brilliant 80
second,
plus. What an amazing innings that was. Like, he just kept whacking it out of the ground. And all those things going for them, and the fact that they were bowling on day 5, where the Sydney pitch was not really a drop-in or an artificial or anything. It was Sydney
It was
pitch.
everything that Australia asked.
Yeah, it was the proper Sydney pitch that they had grown up with.
Yeah.
So they knew exactly what would have happened. Granted, after the match, they said, it did not play as much as it should have or whatever.
Because you didn't bowl as much as you should have.
But just the tactics were so confounding because I couldn't imagine with everything they had going for them, why were they not able to bowl India out on a day 5 pitch? But I could clearly see mentally there was something off. They were getting too frustrated for their own good. Like as if they suddenly found out that they were playing in a match that went on for long, like 5 days. Like what is the reason for that frustration? Like you're at the end of the match, you've done all the work. Why is this getting to you so much that Tim Payne, the model good boy captain, who's there to save Australia after Sandpapergate, is now losing his mind, getting into mental disintegration tactics and dropping a few balls. His bowlers are bowling the same thing over and over again. It's not working out. Granted, the bowlers also have some agency to, change the decision or whatever.
Yeah.
But as the captain, does he also not have enough authority to come and say, guys, this is not working out. Maybe we should try something different. Why was none of that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I kind of smelt it at Melbourne.
Okay.
Everybody is making this hue and cry about, this is not the Australian way of playing cricket. And it is true. It is not the way Australians play their cricket. If any other Australian team had 2 injured batsmen, either they would basically knock them out, which is the ruthless approach that Australians have.
Yeah.
Or they would just figure out a way to get these guys out. But for some funny reason, none of that flavor was to be seen. You have Pat Cummins, fair enough, not working. Mitchell Starc, fair enough, not working. Josh Hazelwood, okay, fair enough, not working. I have a personal problem with how Lyon bowled. Lyon was not effective at all. And then you had a Green, who's a conventional all-rounder, who bowled decently well. I wouldn't say he bowled extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
And on top of it, you had a part-timer in Labuschagne.
Yeah.
Not to forget Steve Smith. Even Steve Smith has some genuine international wickets, and he can roll over his arm for at least like about 10 overs or so. So you technically had 7 bowlers with you, where you could have mixed and matched, and you had you had about 45-50 overs.
Yeah. And the batsmen are not willing to move.
All those things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's get into the scenario after this. Now, this is your repository. You had 7 bowlers, 3 spinners, 4 genuine pace bowlers. And Green is no slow bowler, medium pacer. He upper 130s, early 140s, right?
They never allowed him to bowl enough to get into his groove.
I just don't understand that. On top of it, it was not 4 wickets. All you needed was 2 wickets for you to win the match. Technically. The rest of the 2, you would have gotten it even if you didn't try your 100%. There's very high chances that a Bumrah and a Siraj or a Saini would have played it off. So you technically needed 2 wickets. That's it. And somehow they kept managing not to take wickets. And not just that, they didn't even attack them the way they should have attacked.
That's the key word, the way they should have attacked.
Yeah, the way Australians generally attack. Every commentator, Shane Warne, Glenn McGrath, everybody was saying, oh my sweet Lord, why are they not doing it? And you know what is this thing that really took me aback? The moment they started bowling that short pitch delivery, they just didn't stop it. They just kept going on and on and on and on with that short pitch bowling. And I was like, why are they bowling short pitch? It's almost like they want the draw more than Indians. Now I would go to the other side. Like, where do you see the problem? Do you blame Tim Paine?
I think
for what happened?
Any self-respecting captain, because he has some authority and some agency over the team, should take blame and should take some accountability for what's happening on the field, because your coaching staff at the max can only send you messages if they want to say something, but you are on the field, you're managing your bowlers, their fitness levels, energy levels, whatever it is. But you yourself are caught up in some other game plan where you're frustrated that something is not working out. You're focusing more on banter or sledging. And you also have Matthew Wade throwing balls at Hanuma Vihari out of frustration from that fielding position. All these things were happening, like bowlers were trying to hit them in their ribs just with that short pitch bowling. Just get them disoriented enough so that maybe they'll put their bat out.
Which is a funny thing, right? The fact that they thought they can injure the batsman out more than pick his wicket. And these are not just any bowlers. These are the top 4 bowlers of the world in the test arena. And they are thinking like this. It just doesn't fit well for me. It just doesn't seem right.
The one time Ashwin did give them an opportunity, a sub fielder in Sean Abbott dropped the catch. The other couple of rare times where, yes, the short bowling did get to Ashwin's body to an angle, a weird angle where he stuck his bat out. The ball flew and landed in no man's zone. Like they didn't have a fielder standing there for some odd reason.
Bad field setting. The Indians did really great, by the way. In covering those angles.
Right?
Rahane was brilliant with that field placement. But we had nothing of that sort to be seen, which was a disappointment for me, because I watch India tour Australia for that vigor in the game.
Because of the standard that Australia has set for the game.
As great as their batting was, and purely on the merit of the kind of bowling they did, Australians were missing one trick too many. And this is where I started thinking that, okay, is the game really being played on the field?
Or is it being played in their heads or elsewhere?
Are the decisions being made somewhere else?
And we were forced to ask that question. And I noticed that just after Sydney, when we both had a conversation about the match, both of us pointed this out. When you look at the players on paper, their capability, their talent, their skill, and the kind of decisions that were being taken. And when you look at the post-match reaction, where people were trying to ask questions about Payne himself, about Matthew Wade for some time,
which was so unfortunate,
about Nathan Lyon, justifiably.
Lyon, I'm absolutely behind that question. Like, what the fuck was Lyon doing?
Right, but if you really had to evaluate, yes, Tim Paine did make a few mistakes, but were those mistakes big enough for them to have cost that Sydney match? Yes, maybe Nathan Lyon made a few judgment errors, but was that enough to make up or explain away the whole performance of Australia?
You don't do that at that.
It was not adding up.
Not just adding up, it almost looked like two different storylines altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened post-match didn't seem to be going in tune with what happened during the match.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking from the media perspective, the experts and everything. So when I started hearing all these guys speak, I like, these were the same guys who were telling something else during the match. Like, why aren't they telling it now? You know, it's almost like somebody gave them like a written bound script after the match and they're like, okay, fine, all you need to do is stick to these dialogues.
The biggest revelation that came out after Sydney was there's something going on in that Australian dressing room, which is in deep contrast to what was going on in the Indian dressing room.
Yeah.
By the end of Sydney, none of us really knew what exactly was going on in there, but it was something very special.
Yeah.
But when you look at the other side, it was the exact opposite. Yeah. And it became very clear that maybe the things that are going wrong with Australia is not so much on field or with the players themselves, but there is a deeper, darker root cause to all of this. And this is what we will go into depth after we finish cover our Gabba test match. So definitely look out for that. Follow the series with us. Write to us at mindthyGap@gmail.com if you also caught on to these clues as the series was going on. If you were part of that minority that actually could see or could read between the lines. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback, and we'll catch you in the next episode. But until then, ThyGap, subscribe
and share.
And share, guys. Hey, thanks for listening. You can follow this podcast on Spotify to get notified of new episodes every Thursday. We're also on Apple Podcasts for those of you who have partaken in the forbidden fruit. If you liked what you heard, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Say anything like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. A rating and a comment really helps us out. It's free, and I'm told that's a great price. But enough about us, huh? Tell us about yourself. Leave us a comment. Our Twitter is @ThyGap, and we are _ThyGap on Instagram.